The morning frost crunched under Jack Thompson's warm leather boots as he stepped out of his wooden cabin. The sun was just beginning to peek over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and orange. Jack adjusted the rifle strap on his shoulder and took a deep breath of the crisp mountain air. 20 years of hunting in these woods had taught him to notice even the smallest changes in his surroundings. Something felt different today. Jack pulled his weathered hunting jacket closer as he began his morning patrol around the cabin. The recent snowfall had left a perfect blank canvas for tracking, and as a wilderness guide, he made it his business to know every animal that passed through his territory. He stopped suddenly, his experienced eyes catching something unusual in the snow. Kneeling down, Jack studied the tracks before him with growing confusion. They looked like dog prints, but something wasn't right. He placed his hand next to one of the impressions. It was nearly twice the size of a wolf's print, and the spacing between steps was all wrong. What kind of animal walks like this? He muttered to himself, noting how the tracks formed an almost perfectly straight line. Even the most disciplined wolf pack didn't move with such mechanical precision. His hunter's curiosity got the better of him. Jack adjusted his backpack and began following the strange tracks. They led him deeper into the forest, away from his usual hunting grounds. The morning sun filtered through the pine branches, casting long shadows across the pristine snow. After about an hour of tracking, Jack noticed something else odd. The tracks suddenly showed signs of a struggle. Deep gouges in the snow, broken branches, and what looked like thin metallic threads scattered around. His hand instinctively tightened on his rifle strap, but years of experience told him to observe before acting. That's when he heard it, a low whine, unlike any animal he'd encountered before. It was almost mechanical. Moving carefully between the trees, Jack followed the sound. In a small clearing ahead, he saw what appeared to be a large dog tied to an ancient pine tree. But as he got closer, his eyes widened in disbelief. The dog was massive, easily the size of a small horse. Its fur had a metallic sheen that seemed to shift colors in the morning light, and what he had thought was a rope turned out to be some kind of glowing cord that pulsed with a faint blue light. The creature's eyes were what really caught his attention. They weren't animal eyes at all, but rather something that looked like sophisticated camera lenses, adjusting and focusing as it watched him approach. Jack had seen plenty of strange things in his years as a hunter, but nothing like this. His first instinct was to turn around and head straight back to his cabin. But something about the creature's situation tugged at his conscience. Whatever this thing was, it was trapped and possibly injured. The creature watched him intently as he took a cautious step forward. To his surprise, it made no aggressive moves. Instead, it lowered its head in what almost looked like a gesture of respect. Jack noticed some kind of collar around its neck, covered in symbols he'd never seen before. "Well," Jack said quietly, more to himself than the creature, "I've got a feeling this isn't something they covered in my hunting guide training." He slowly set his rifle down against a nearby tree, keeping it within reach but showing he meant no harm. The creature's mechanical eyes followed his movement, and Jack could have sworn he saw something like approval in its gaze. As he studied the situation, his mind raced with questions. What was this thing? Who or what had trapped it here? And most importantly, what should he do about it? 20 years in the wilderness had taught Jack that sometimes the most dangerous thing wasn't the strange situation you found yourself in, but the hasty decisions you made in response to it. The creature made that odd mechanical whine again, but this time it sounded almost like it was trying to form words. Jack Thompson, experienced hunter and wilderness guide, was about to discover that his world was much bigger and stranger than he'd ever imagined. Jack stood in the snowy clearing, watching the strange mechanical dog-like creature. His breath formed small clouds in the cold morning air as he considered his next move. The glowing blue cord that held the creature to the tree gave off a soft hum that seemed to get louder as he approached. Suddenly, the creature's collar made a series of clicking sounds. A small panel opened up, and a beam of light projected into the air between them. Jack took a startled step backward, his hand instinctively reaching for the rifle he'd set aside. "Please remain calm, human," a clear voice came from the light. "I mean you no harm." Jack blinked several times, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The voice was neither male nor female, but somehow both at once. It had an odd musical quality to it that made it pleasant to listen to. You can talk?" Jack asked, proud that his voice remained steady despite his shock. "I am Agent Red of the Watchers," the creature replied. "This translation device allows us to communicate. I must ask for your assistance, as I find myself in a rather difficult situation." Jack ran a hand through his graying hair. 20 years in the wilderness hadn't prepared him for this. "The Watchers? What exactly are you watching?" The creature's mechanical eyes adjusted, focusing on him with intense interest. "We are guardians, protectors of developing worlds and their wildlife. Earth has been under our protection for many centuries, though we usually remain hidden from human sight." "And that glowing rope holding you?" Jack gestured toward the strange cord. "A trap set by our enemies, the Collectors. They are hunters in their own way, but not like you." The creature's mechanical eyes dimmed slightly. "They take species from developing worlds for study and experimentation. We try to stop them." Jack moved closer to examine the glowing cord. His experienced eyes noticed how it seemed to tighten whenever Agent Red moved. "So these Collectors, they're the bad guys." "They believe their actions serve a greater purpose, but their methods are cruel and disruptive to natural development. They've been taking Earth's creatures for centuries, but they've always ignored humans." "Ignored us? Why?" Jack asked, feeling slightly offended. A sound came from Agent Red that might have been a laugh. "They consider humans too primitive to be of interest. They measure advancement solely by technological progress. They fail to see the value in practical skills and adaptability." Jack thought about this as he circled the tree, studying how the cord was attached. His years of dealing with trapped animals might actually be useful here. "How long have you been stuck?" 3 Earth days. The cord is designed to respond to our technology. Any attempt to use advanced tools causes it to constrict further. Agent Red's translator produced a sound like a sigh. "The Collectors will return soon to capture me." Jack pulled out his old hunting knife, turning it over in his hands. "What about primitive tools?" Agent Red's mechanical eyes whirred as they focused on the knife. "I hadn't considered that. The trap is programmed to react to energy signatures. A simple physical tool might." Before the creature could finish, Jack heard a distant humming sound. Agent Red's head snapped up, eyes scanning the sky. "They're coming. You must leave now, human. The Collectors are dangerous." But Jack Thompson hadn't survived 20 years in the wilderness by running from danger. He'd learned that sometimes the best way to handle a threat was to face it head-on. Besides, he'd never left a trapped animal to face its fate alone, and he wasn't about to start now, even if this animal turned out to be an alien. "Name's Jack," he said, moving quickly to the base of the tree where the cord was anchored. "And I've got a better idea than running. You said these Collectors think humans are primitive." He began sawing at the cord with his knife, using techniques he'd learned for cutting through tough materials. "Let's show them just how wrong they are." The humming grew louder as dark shapes appeared in the morning sky. Jack worked faster, knowing that whatever happened next would change his life forever. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. That was something every hunter learned sooner or later. The gray metallic ships emerged from behind the mountain peaks, their smooth surfaces reflecting the morning sunlight. Jack's knife had only managed to fray the glowing cord, but he kept working at it with steady determination. Years of field dressing game had taught him that patience was just as important as strength. "They're closing in," Agent Red warned, mechanical eyes tracking the approaching vessels. "The cord is weakening, but not fast enough." Jack looked up at the ships, then at the surrounding forest. A plan began forming in his mind. "Can you run with what's left of the cord?" "Yes, but they'll track my energy signature." "Perfect," Jack said, finally cutting through the last strands of the alien rope. "Because we're going to use that to our advantage. Follow me and do exactly what I say." Without waiting for a response, Jack grabbed his rifle and started moving through the trees. Agent Red followed, the remaining piece of cord trailing behind them. The hunter led them through the densest part of the forest, where the thick pine branches would make it harder for the ships to spot them from above. The humming of the ships grew louder. Jack could hear them circling overhead, their searchlights piercing through gaps in the canopy. He guided Agent Red to a fallen log covered in snow. "Roll in it," Jack commanded. "Get that metallic shine of yours covered up." Agent Red did as instructed, its strange fur now dusted white with snow. Jack quickly did the same with himself, using old hunting camouflage techniques. "They're deploying ground units," Agent Red reported as mechanical whirring sounds filled the forest. "The collectors use automated drones for capture." Jack nodded, leading them toward a steep ravine he knew well. "How many?" "6 drones. They're spreading out in a standard search pattern." "Good," Jack smiled. He'd used similar patterns himself when tracking elk. The thing about search patterns is they're predictable. They reached the ravine's edge, where a narrow game trail led down one side. Jack had used this trail countless times to track mountain goats. More importantly, he knew all its dangerous spots. "See that cave entrance halfway down?" Jack pointed to a dark opening in the ravine wall. "That's where we're headed. But first, we're going to lay a false trail." Taking the remaining piece of the glowing cord, Jack tied it to a heavy branch. He threw it across the ravine, where it caught in some trees on the other side. The cord's energy signature would lead the drones right to it. "Clever," Agent Red commented. "But they'll realize it's a decoy." "That's the point," Jack said, already moving down the game trail. "By the time they figure it out, we'll be long gone through the cave system." They carefully made their way down, Jack pointing out treacherous spots in the trail. Behind them, they could hear the mechanical whirring getting closer as the drones followed the energy signature of the cord. Just as they reached the cave entrance, the first drone appeared at the ravine's edge. It was a spherical machine about the size of a basketball, with multiple scanning arms extending from its surface. "Don't move," Jack whispered, pulling Agent Red deeper into the shadow of the cave entrance. The drone's scanners swept the area, focusing on the glowing cord across the ravine. More drones arrived, all converging on the decoy. Jack waited until they were fully committed to investigating the cord before leading Agent Red into the cave. "These caves connect to an underground river system," Jack explained as they moved through the darkness. "The water and mineral deposits will mask any trail we leave. I've been mapping these caves for years." Agent Red's mechanical eyes provided enough light to navigate by. "Most impressive. You've turned our disadvantage into an advantage. The collectors rely too heavily on their technology. They won't expect such. Primitive yet effective tactics. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways," Jack replied, leading them deeper into the cave network. "My grandfather taught me that a good hunter needs to think like their prey, but a great hunter needs to think like the land itself." The sounds of confused and frustrated drones echoed from the ravine above as they made their way through the ancient limestone passages. Jack Thompson, the supposedly primitive human, had just outwitted some of the most advanced hunting technology in the galaxy using nothing but experience and common sense. The underground caves grew wider as Jack and Agent Red moved deeper into the mountain. Water dripped from limestone formations, and their footsteps echoed off the ancient walls. Jack had explored these caves many times before, but something felt different today. "Hold up," he whispered, raising his hand. His flashlight beam had caught something unusual on the cave wall, a perfectly straight line that nature couldn't have made. Agent Red's mechanical eyes whirred as they adjusted to focus on the spot. "This is collector technology. A concealment panel." Jack ran his fingers along the straight edge. "There's a draft coming through. Back at the ranger station, we used to look for air currents to find hidden pot farms in caves. Same principle might work here." Following the draft, Jack discovered more artificial edges. He pressed against different spots until he heard a click. A section of the wall slid away silently, revealing a metallic corridor bathed in dim blue light. "It appears you found one of their research facilities," Agent Red said, mechanical eyes scanning the entrance. "This technology is decades old. They must have abandoned it." Jack checked his rifle out of habit, though he doubted it would do much good against alien technology. "You said they've been taking Earth's wildlife. Maybe we can find out why." They entered the corridor cautiously. The metal floor was covered in dust, but Jack could make out tracks, some from Earth animals, others decidedly not. The facility reminded him of an old veterinary clinic, if veterinary clinics were built by advanced aliens. "Look at this," Jack said, stopping at a large window. Behind it was a room full of strange equipment and what looked like giant glass tubes. Some still contained preserved specimens, a mountain lion, several types of birds, and animals he didn't recognize. Agent Red moved to what appeared to be a control panel. This is a data terminal. If I can access it. The creature's collar extended a small probe that connected to the panel. Lights flickered to life across the facility. They've been studying Earth's wildlife for over 300 years. Agent Red translated as information scrolled across the screen. Testing their adaptability, their survival instincts there. Their potential as weapons, Jack finished, looking at images that appeared on the screen. They showed Earth animals modified with mechanical parts. They weren't just studying them. They were trying to turn them into something else. Correct. The collectors believe that Earth's harsh environments have produced exceptionally resilient species. They wanted to harness that resilience. Jack moved through the facility, his hunter's instincts alert for any danger. He found more research rooms, each filled with different equipment. In one room, star charts covered the walls, showing various planets marked with strange symbols. But something's not right, he said, thinking out loud. If they've been here so long, why haven't they taken over? Why work in secret? Agent Red's mechanical eyes dimmed slightly. Because they failed. Their experiments were unsuccessful. Earth's creatures proved too unpredictable, too adaptive. The collectors couldn't control them. Jack noticed something on another screen: movement patterns, behavior studies, survival rates. He might not understand the alien writing, but he understood data. 20 years of tracking and studying animals had taught him to read natural patterns. They were looking at it all wrong, he said, pointing to the charts. They try to control everything. But nature isn't about control, it's about adaptation, change, working with what you have. He turned to face Agent Red. That's why they ignored humans, isn't it? We don't have the strongest bodies or the sharpest claws. We can't fly or breathe underwater. But we adapt. We learn. We use what we have. Perhaps, Agent Red replied, still processing data from the terminal. But there's more. They're planning something bigger. Recent data shows increased activity. They're not just taking individual specimens anymore. They're preparing for a larger operation. Jack's expression hardened. He'd spent his life protecting the wilderness and its creatures. The thought of aliens mass harvesting Earth's wildlife for experiments made his blood boil. Well, he said, checking his rifle again, looks like we need to do something about that. What else can you find in their system? The abandoned facility hummed with ancient technology as human and alien worked together, uncovering secrets that had been hidden for centuries beneath the Montana mountains. Deep in the abandoned collector facility, Jack watched as Agent Red processed more information from the alien computer system. The mechanical dog's eyes flickered rapidly as data streamed across multiple screens. Outside, they could still hear the distant hum of collector ships searching for them. "This is worse than we thought," Agent Red said, the translator making the voice sound troubled. The collectors have been gathering data on Earth's magnetic fields, weather patterns, and animal migration routes. They're planning a mass extraction event. Jack leaned closer to one of the screens showing a map of Earth. Red dots covered every continent, pulsing in a strange pattern. What exactly does mass extraction mean? They've developed technology to teleport large numbers of animals simultaneously. They plan to take thousands of species in a single operation. Agent Red's mechanical eyes dimmed. The environmental impact would be devastating. Jack thought about his years in the wilderness, about the delicate balance he'd observed between different species. It would collapse entire ecosystems, he said quietly. Why now? After all these years of taking just a few animals at a time, more data appeared on the screens. They're desperate. Their experiments failed because they couldn't control Earth's creatures. But now they've discovered something that concerns them even more. Agent Red turned to face Jack. Humans. Us? I thought they considered us primitive. That was their mistake. Look at this data. Agent Red brought up new charts showing human advancement over centuries. They'd focused on technological progress, expecting it to follow a standard pattern. But humans did something unprecedented. Jack watched as the charts showed different parts of development. We didn't follow their pattern. No. While other species they've studied developed technology first and adapted later, humans did the opposite. You adapted to every environment on Earth using minimal technology, then developed tools based on those adaptations. The collectors had never seen anything like it. A new screen lit up, showing human settlements in different environments: desert communities, Arctic villages, tropical islands, mountain towns. Each showed people using simple but effective tools and techniques adapted to their surroundings. They're afraid, Jack realized, understanding dawning on him. They're not doing this just for experiments anymore. They want to take Earth's animals before humans become too advanced to stop, Agent Red finished. They've run simulations showing that within a few decades, Earth's technology will make such operations impossible. This is their last chance to harvest what they want. Jack moved to another screen showing more recent data. But they made another mistake, didn't they? All these years studying animals, and they never bothered to study us. Never realized we might notice things going wrong. That people like me, who live close to nature, might see the patterns. Correct. The Watchers have been protecting Earth's wildlife, but we didn't understand the full scope of their plans until now. We thought they were just collectors, scientists. We didn't realize they saw Earth's unique evolutionary path as a threat. Jack picked up his rifle, checking it more out of habit than any belief it would help against alien technology. So what's their timeline? According to this data, the mass extraction is scheduled for next month. They're placing transport beacons all over the planet, disguised as natural formations. Like that strange rock formation I found last week, Jack said, remembering the oddly smooth boulder that had appeared on one of his hunting trails. I knew something wasn't right about it. Agent Red's mechanical eyes brightened suddenly. You found one? The beacons are heavily shielded. Our sensors can't detect them unless we're within a few meters. I find things for a living, Jack said simply, and I know every inch of these mountains. If there are more of those beacons out there, I can find them. The screens around them continued to display data about the collector's plans, but Jack wasn't looking at them anymore. He was thinking about all the animals he'd tracked over the years, all the subtle signs and patterns he'd learned to read. We need to warn the other Watchers, Agent Red said. But the collectors are still blocking long-range communications. Jack smiled slightly, the kind of smile that had crossed his face many times before when he figured out a particularly challenging track. Then maybe it's time to show these collectors that they're not the only ones who know how to set a trap. The setting sun painted the Montana sky in deep oranges and purples as Jack and Agent Red prepared their trap. They had spent the afternoon gathering supplies from Jack's cabin and identifying the locations of 3 more transport beacons in the surrounding mountains. Are you certain this will work? Agent Red asked, watching Jack arrange branches and leaves in a specific pattern. The collectors have very advanced scanning technology. Jack continued his work, using skills passed down through generations of hunters. Sometimes the best way to fool advanced technology is to use no technology at all. Nature creates patterns that their scanners are programmed to ignore. They had chosen their location carefully. A natural bowl in the landscape where several game trails converged. Jack had hunted here many times, understanding how the wind moved through the area and how sound carried across the terrain. The beacon is buried under that rock formation, Jack said, pointing to a seemingly natural pile of boulders. Their ships will have to come in low to retrieve it, and when they do, he gestured to the surrounding ridges where they had spent hours setting up their surprise. Agent Red had provided some of the Watchers' non-lethal technology, devices that could disrupt the collector's systems without causing permanent damage. Jack had combined these with traditional hunting techniques, creating something entirely new. Their arrogance is their weakness, Agent Red observed, mechanical eyes scanning their preparations. They won't expect such a simple approach. That's what makes it perfect, Jack replied, making final adjustments to their setup. In hunting, you learn that the most dangerous predator isn't always the biggest or strongest, it's the one that's most patient and observant. As darkness fell, they heard the familiar hum of collector ships approaching. Jack and Agent Red took their positions, concealed by nothing more than natural materials and knowledge of how shadows fell in the valley. The first ship appeared over the ridge, its sleek metal surface reflecting the last rays of sunlight. It moved exactly as Jack had predicted, following the path of least resistance through the air currents. 2 more ships followed, forming a triangle pattern. They're beginning their retrieval sequence, Agent Red whispered, the translator pitched low. The beacon signal is activating. Jack watched calmly as the ships descended. Everything was happening just as he had planned. The ships had to come within 50 feet of the ground to transport the beacon, and that's when they would spring their trap. The first part was simple physics. Jack had spent the afternoon arranging fallen logs and rocks to create natural ramps. As the ships lowered, they triggered trip lines made of ordinary vine and bark, indistinguishable from natural debris to the collector's scanners. The logs rolled, forcing the ships to adjust their position. Now, Jack whispered. Agent Red activated the Watcher devices they had hidden around the valley. But instead of trying to directly attack the ships, Jack had suggested something different. The devices mimicked the natural electromagnetic fields that the ship's sensors used for navigation. The result was immediate and devastating. The ships, receiving conflicting data from what appeared to be natural sources, were forced to rely on their automated safety protocols. They moved exactly where Jack had predicted they would, into a tight cluster at the center of the valley. Third rule of hunting, Jack said, triggering the final part of their trap. Control where your target goes, not where it is. The natural bowl of the valley was actually a disguised sinkhole, weakened carefully throughout the day. The weight of the three ships clustered together was too much. The ground collapsed beneath them, dropping them into a prepared pit filled with a sticky mixture of mud and pine sap, a traditional trap Jack had learned from his grandfather, scaled up for much bigger prey. The ship's engines whined as they tried to free themselves, but the more they struggled, the more stuck they became. Their sensors, still confused by the false electromagnetic signals, couldn't coordinate properly. Impossible, came a voice from one of the ships, the first time they had heard a collector speak. Our systems indicate no technology in use. How? Sometimes, Jack called out to the trapped ships, the best technology is no technology at all. Agent Red's mechanical eyes showed what might have been pride. The Watchers will be here soon. We've done it. Jack nodded, looking at their handiwork. Simple hunting techniques, combined with a few alien devices and an understanding of natural patterns, had just defeated some of the most advanced ships in the galaxy. The supposedly primitive human had proven that real intelligence wasn't about having the best technology, it was about knowing how to use what you had. 3 months after the capture of the collector ships, Jack Thompson stood at the window of a newly built facility in the Montana Mountains. The structure looked like a normal ranger station from the outside, but inside it housed Earth's first official contact point with the Watchers. The last transport beacon was removed yesterday, Agent Red said, walking up beside him. The mechanical dog had become a familiar sight around the facility, though it still drew curious looks from the few humans cleared to know about its existence. The collectors have officially withdrawn from Earth's solar system. Jack nodded, watching a deer and her fawn move through the trees outside. Everything looked so normal, yet everything had changed. How are they taking their defeat? With surprising grace, actually. Your trap didn't just capture their ships, it changed their understanding of humanity. Agent Red's mechanical eyes adjusted, focusing on the peaceful scene outside. They've been forced to recognize that technological advancement isn't the only measure of intelligence. The facility behind them hummed with activity. After the Watchers had arrived to help secure the captured collector ships, Earth's governments had been quietly informed about the situation. To everyone's surprise, it was decided that the first official contact point would be run not by military officers or scientists, but by people like Jack, those who understood nature and its patterns. The first group of trainees arrives tomorrow, Jack said, turning away from the window. The large room before him was set up with both traditional hunting and tracking equipment alongside holographic displays showing animal migration patterns from around the world. Never thought I'd be teaching hunting skills to help protect Earth from aliens. That's precisely why you're perfect for this role, Agent Red replied. The collectors failed because they couldn't understand Earth's unique development path. But you and others like you represent what makes humanity special, the ability to combine ancient wisdom with new knowledge. Jack walked over to a table where his old hunting knife lay next to sophisticated alien scanning equipment. Still feels strange, mixing primitive tools with advanced technology. There's nothing primitive about understanding your environment, Agent Red corrected. The Watchers have learned more about Earth's ecosystems from you in 3 months than we learned in centuries of observation. The door opened and a young woman entered, Lisa, one of the wildlife biologists who had been recruited for the program. The satellite data shows unusual animal movement patterns in the Amazon, she reported. Could be another group trying to copy the collector's methods. Jack picked up both his knife and one of the alien devices. Then I guess we better go check it out. Agent Red, care to join us? Always, the mechanical dog replied. Though I must warn you, my superiors are still adjusting to your unconventional methods. Jack laughed as they headed toward the facility's transport area. Tell them they'd better get used to it. Earth's full of people who understand things their senses can't detect. That's our strength. As they prepared for transport, Jack thought about how much had changed since that morning he found strange tracks in the snow. Earth was now under the official protection of the Watchers, but more importantly, humanity had proven itself worthy of being true partners in that protection. The transport room hummed to life, its walls glowing with ethereal light. Before they departed, Jack grabbed his old backpack, still stuffed with basic survival gear alongside the new alien equipment he'd been given. You know, he said to Agent Red as the transport sequence began, when I was a kid, my grandfather told me that the best hunters learn from everything around them, the wind, the trees, the animals, even the rocks. Guess he never imagined that would include learning from aliens too. Agent Red's mechanical eyes showed what had become recognizable as amusement, and we never imagined we would learn so much from a species that still uses sticks and stones alongside starships. The transport light enveloped them, and Jack smiled. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by abandoning its roots, but by showing that true advancement meant keeping the best of the old ways while embracing the new. The universe, it turned out, had a lot to learn from the supposedly primitive humans who had mastered the art of adaptation long before they mastered technology. In the Montana wilderness, where it all began, a new chapter was starting, one where humanity's unique way of seeing the world would help protect not just Earth, but countless other worlds among the stars.